And hello again from Fox News in Washington. It began as an investigation into Benghazi, but now Hillary Clinton is being forced to answer for her handling of emails while she was Secretary of State. The House Benghazi Committee has issued a subpoena for Clinton's emails and called for an independent review of her private server. Joining us now, the chairman of that committee, South Carolina Republican Trey Gowdy. Chairman, the State Department has turned over 300 of Clinton's emails on Benghazi, some 900 pages last month, to the Benghazi committee that you're the chair of. Based on what you've seen, did she do anything wrong? And how can you be sure that those aren't all of her emails on this subject?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by do anything wrong. I mean, we haven't seen, obviously, any evidence of a crime. And if we do get some level of assurance that we have all of the emails and we don't have any level of assurance because of the arrangement she had with herself, then I'll let your viewers decide whether or not there were any mistakes made. But I have no guarantee that we have everything that we're entitled to be able to do our jobs.
Why do you have doubts about that, sir?
Well, there are huge gaps. Chris, if you think back to that iconic photograph of her on the C-17 with her BlackBerry in her hand, she's on her way to Libya. And there are no emails for weeks and weeks on either side of that trip, including the trip itself. Now, it may be that there's a plausible explanation for that, but we're going to have to ask her before we will know that. In
her news conference, Secretary Clinton said that she basically turned over 30,000 emails to the State Department after a routine request to her and to all of the secretaries of state. Here she is.
After I left office, the State Department asked former secretaries of state for our assistance in providing copies of work-related emails from our personal accounts. I responded right away.
In fact, Chairman, what role did your committee play in bringing about the State Department asking her to turn over emails that she hadn't turned over for the 2 years since she left office?
Well, Chris, I won't be able to answer that question definitively. Only the State Department knows the impetus behind that letter. I find the timing incredibly curious, and I think the State Department has had to correct its testimony, so to speak, on multiple occasions. We asked for those emails as early as August of 2014, and we got 8 of them, and so we ratcheted up the conversations, and then we got 300 in February. Why they decided to write 4 former secretaries of state under a routine records maintenance program, it doesn't pass the SMILE test, but you're going to have to ask the State Department that question.
All right. The only way to see, she said in her news conference, she turned over 30,000 emails. She deleted 30,000 emails. The only way to see those 30,000 that she says were personal would be to look at her private server. But Clinton made it very clear in her news conference. The answer to that is no. Take a look.
The server contains personal communications from my husband and me, and I believe I have met all of my responsibilities, and the server will remain private.
Now, you say your committee can't subpoena personal property. They can documents, papers, but not personal property like a server. On the other hand, the House of Representatives, the full House, can. Should they?
Well, we shouldn't have to. I hope it doesn't get to that point. It's an open legal question, and anytime you litigate something, you're talking about years and years. I think an eminently reasonable alternative is for her to turn over that server to an independent, neutral third party. She says she deleted personal emails. Chris, I have zero interest in looking at her personal emails. I don't care about her yoga practice. I don't care about bridesmaids' dresses. I don't want to see that. But who gets to decide what's personal and what's public? And if it's a mixed-use email, and lots of the emails we get in life are both personal and some work, I just can't trust her lawyers to make the determination that the public's getting everything they're entitled to.
But she said in that news conference, because she was specifically asked about this idea, have an independent person, somebody mutually agreeable, come in and look at the server, and that's when she said it will remain private.
Well, there are lots of ways to motivate people in life, Chris. One is public pressure, and if it becomes an issue for her, if the public believes that it is reasonable for her to turn over that server, which contains public information, to a neutral, detached arbiter, not Congress, but a retired judge or an archivist or an inspector general, then she'll be forced to do so. Otherwise, the House as an institution may be forced to go to court to try to get access to that. But again, the House has no business looking at purely personal emails, but by the same token, she doesn't get to decide what is purely personal and what is public.
Now, in her news conference, Clinton said that she has complied with every rule, every law during the time that she was Secretary of State. As a former federal prosecutor, do you believe that to be true, sir?
Chris, I was a very mediocre prosecutor, and I did no federal records cases. I'm going to have to let smart lawyers decide whether or not she complied with the law or not. I know this. I have been asked to find out what happened before, during, and after Benghazi, and I need her records to do that, and I cannot take her lawyer's word that he went through and used all the right search terms. I mean, that's one question she didn't answer, is how did you search for public records? How did you reconcile personal versus public? So there are a lot more questions, and we're going to have to go to her to get the answers to them. I don't want to have a second conversation with her. And 2 weeks ago, we weren't planning on having a second conversation with her, but she had an arrangement with herself as it relates to public records, and that's why you and I are having this conversation.
I want to ask you about this document. This is the separation statement that every member of the State Department must sign. It's called OF Form 109. Every employee of the State Department must sign it before they leave, and they must certify, I have surrendered to responsible officials all unclassified documents and papers relating to the official business of the government acquired by me while in the employ of the department. Two questions, Chairman. Do you know if Secretary Clinton signed that form before she left the State Department? And secondly, whether she met that pledge, which is to be enforced as a felony by either prison time or a disqualification from public office?
No, I do not know if she signed that, and it would be irresponsible for me to guess. The responsible thing to do is to ask her and ask the State Department to produce a copy of it, and if she did not sign it, ask her why she did not sign it, and if she did sign it, we'll go over the document with her. But when you don't have evidence one way or another, I'm not in the business of speculating, so I would have to ask her in the State Department that.
Finally, we're about to talk to Congressman Adam Schiff, a Democrat on your committee. He says that you are turning this investigation and this committee into an arm of the Republican National Committee aimed at hurting Hillary Clinton. Your reaction?
Well, first of all, Chris, I like Adam very much, and he's a very good attorney. If you look back at the 3 hearings we have had so far, I have mentioned Hillary Clinton's name a whopping 0 times. We would never be having this conversation, and Adam would not be on your set right now had she not had an arrangement with herself to decide what is public record and what is personal. So if he is frustrated with the last 2 weeks, he needs to talk to Secretary Clinton. We were interviewing witnesses that have nothing to do with Secretary Clinton when this story broke. So to the extent Democrats are frustrated, they should talk to Secretary Clinton, not me. I didn't tell her to get a personal server. I didn't tell her to hire her attorney to go through these 60,000 records, and Lord knows I didn't tell her to delete 30,000 of them. So he should probably direct that frustration towards her and not to the House.
Chairman Gowdy, thank you. Thanks for joining us today.